everyone, and I am back with you today to show you how to create some homemade dough ornaments. I've shared a link to my favorite recipe on the coordinating blog post, which you can check out. So I've just made this up and allowed it to cool to room temperature, and I'm going to take it out of the bowl. And I thought I would go ahead and show you how I like to prepare it for making the actual dough ornaments. I like to keep a little pile of cornstarch handy to the side, and I'm working on a silicone mat. That's pretty essential. If you don't have a silicone mat, I would probably try to maybe work on wax paper or something like that. But the first thing I like to do is to knead it a few times, and you'll notice that this dough has just a wonderful texture to it. It's really smooth, and it's a pretty white color, and it's just really easy to work with, especially since we're going to be stamping into it a bit later here. So I've kneaded this a bit, and I'm going to get ready to roll it out. I like to make these fairly thick. I'm going to rub a little bit of this on the rolling pin I'm using. I like to leave these about 1/4 of an inch thick. I feel like it makes them a bit more substantial and makes it easy to apply the pressure with the stamps that we're going to be doing. So one batch of this dough you can get about 8 to 10 3-inch round ornaments out of. I've rolled this out, and I have a 3-inch cookie cutter here. It's got both scalloped edge and plain edge, and you can experiment on your own as far as what you prefer, the scallops or the plain. And one thing I do like to do is keep, like I said, the cornstarch to the side here, and I like to dip my cutter in it before each cut. And I find that it helps so there's no sticking. And I applied even pressure all the way down through, lift up gently, and you can see I got a nice clean cut there. And I do the same type of thing for the scalloped edge. Go straight down and straight up, and that cornstarch makes it really nice so that it doesn't stick. And you can get several, like I said earlier, out of one batch of this dough. I'm just going to do 2 of each for now. But after you get as many as you can into the piece that you've rolled out, it's easy to just lift that away. And what's wonderful about this is you can remold this and roll it as many times as you like. It's not like regular cookie dough. And it always comes out nice and smooth. So I could easily roll this out and get more ornaments out of it. So I have these 4 I'm going to work with right now. There's a little piece here that didn't come off when I pulled the dough away. And right now I'm going to put a hole in these so they can be tied onto a gift as a tag or onto a tree as an ornament. So one of my tricks is to use a drinking straw, and I like to roll it around in the extra cornstarch so it won't stick, and go straight down through and give it a little twist and lift straight up, and you get a perfect hole almost every time. And you can use the same straw for all of your tags, because the dough just keeps going up inside of it further and further. You can just fill up the whole straw with several tag holes. Just roll it in the cornstarch after each cut, and you won't have any of that sticking. So now it's time for a little bit of customization. I've got a few stamps at the ready here, and I'm going to impress some sentiments into these tags. I like the nice clean look of the natural word pressed into the dough just with an impression rather than using ink or adding color to it. I just feel like it looks more classic. So I'm gonna show you, I've got my stamp on my block. I just lightly put it on top of the ornament, and then I like to apply nice even pressure by having my fingers on either end of where the stamp image is. The middle will go down by itself once I have these edges started. So I start pushing just until I get a little bit of resistance, which means that the edge of the base of the stamp, not the actual word, is starting to come close to the dough. You'll kind of feel it for yourself once you do this. So you press fairly firmly and then lift straight up. If you're doing something really detailed, you can go ahead and dip your stamp a little bit in the cornstarch before you stamp it if you like. So there's a believe tag. I've got another sentiment here that's more of a classic little holiday blessings image, and I'm going to do pretty much the same exact thing. Start at the edges of the block and just apply a fair amount of firm pressure. You don't want to press too hard because then it will go too deep. And you can see there it says holiday blessings there now. Okay, I'm back again with my final baked ornaments here. Cooked them at 175 for 30 minutes on each side, and they're nice, sturdy, finished ornaments now. And of course you could leave them as is, but I thought it would be fun to add a pop of color to them. So what I decided to do was actually stamp on some tissue paper. I've got a little piece here that's about 2 by 3.5 inches or so, a little bit bigger, wider than the ornaments themselves. Okay, now that we have the small pieces of tissue paper stamped and sealed, I'm going to go ahead and apply these to my ornaments. I'm using Mod Podge in the matte. I kind of wanted it to be more of a matte finish rather than shiny, but you can use whatever you prefer. And what I'm going to do, I'll start here with a regular circular ornament, and I'm going to brush on some of this just on the bottom half of the ornament, applying it fairly thick. And I'm also going to go fairly heavy right here around the edge, kind of smooth it out as I go. I'm going to take the small piece of tissue paper, and I'm actually going to tear the top edge of it, and I'm going to go ahead and just stick it right on here like this. And I'm going to use my finger, and I'm just going to kind of tap it and smooth it into the Mod Podge. The next thing I'm going to do before I fold the edge around is I'm going to trim the circle like this, just so there's enough to go down around the edge. And since I put the Mod Podge on pretty heavy, I can go around with my finger and just bend that right over. And the tissue paper is thin enough that it can form to just about any shape when you're using the Mod Podge. And there's the finished accent on the ornament. And I preferred not to put a second coat of Mod Podge on top. I felt like it looked a little bit more natural with just that one layer underneath. But you of course can do whatever you would like when you're creating your own. And I thought I would give you a few tips for doing an ornament with scallops. When you're brushing the Mod Podge on, use a downward stroke with a fairly heavy amount of Mod Podge on your paintbrush when you're doing the edge of the ornament, just like that. And I'm again going to tear the top edge of the tissue paper. I'm going to place that on there and use my finger to mash that right into the Mod Podge while it's still wet. Trim the tissue paper about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. It doesn't need to be perfect. So when doing the scallops, I'm going to go ahead and fold this down just normally, like I would on a standard circle. And then I'm going to take my fingers and I'm just going to go down in the grooves of each side of the scallop like this. And it makes the tissue paper go down into the points of the scallop a little bit better. And there you go, that's how you get it into the scallops.